Welcome to part 2 in this video series, which involves building a one-page layout using HTML and CSS. We have from the part 1 some files downloaded. We've set up our workspace in Dreamweaver. We've opened up the files that we need, starter page and styles.css, and we've decided that now it's time to start putting things together so that we can make our document, which it looks like this presently, look more like this and all the steps required to get there. So we decided that we're going to start with the typography side of things, just because it's a high impact, low effort type thing to get out of the way. We have a couple of fonts that are being used here. One of them is called ASAP. The other one is called Paytone 1. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to hook this into Google Fonts and retrieve them from there so that we can reproduce these fonts on our web page. First thing we want to do is head on over to Google at fonts.google.com. I'll give you a second to get there. Once you're there, you'll see obviously a list of 800 fonts that Google Fonts has available for us. That's really, you'll never need that many fonts in your life. It really boils down to like 5 or 7 that you'll ever need. Specifically for this project, we're looking for 2, Paytone 1 and another one called ASAP. So rather than browsing through here, we're going to just do a quick search for ASAP, and there it is. And once you've found it here, we'll do a little quick add to the bin. Regular, right, so this is available in 4 weights: regular, italic, bold, and bold italic, so that's good. And this is going to be our body text. So you can see here in the mock-up, this is what's going to be generating our content. So let's add that to our bin by clicking the little plus icon over here. Boom. And now it adds it to our little bin here at the bottom. We can continue looking for more, and it'll keep adding it there. We go to Paytone, and there it is again. Right here, this is going to be our heading font. There's only one style, one weight that we need for this because it's a heading. It's good enough. And again, if we click here, now we have both of these fonts selected. These are all the fonts we need right now. So the next step is to hook our page into Google Fonts and have these fonts available for us to use. So click the little gray bar down here, which is your bin, and you get a little summary of what's cooking here. Here's your selection. You have Paytone 1 and ASAP. You can delete them by clicking the little minus icons. Or you can minimize this and go back to adding more if you prefer. For this exercise, we need these. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a standard method in this particular exercise. Seeing as it's a one-pager, what we'll do is we'll grab this little piece of code over here, which creates a link to Google and specifically the ASAP and Paytone fonts, so that when our page loads, it retrieves them from the Google servers and displays them on our page. So select this text, copy it, go back to your document, and in the source code, what you want to do is paste that little snippet of code somewhere here in the head of your document. So this is where the head tag opens. This is where the head tag closes. You want to make sure that it's somewhere in between there, and there's already another link tag in there. You might want to keep all these together. So just paste it right in that little slot right over there. So now you see we got the link to the Google Fonts. That's step 1. Now we've established communication with Google. We have to define it in our document as to where these fonts are going to be used. For that, we're going to switch to our styles.css. So let's switch back to Google Fonts. Go to the second part. Font family, ASAP. this was for our body text. So what we're going to do is copy this little snippet of code over here, and going back to our styles.css document, what we want to do is assign a global value here. So in our body text, we can just paste this code into our CSS. And that way, by default, all the fonts in our document are going to load this ASAP font, unless told otherwise. Might as well take a look ahead. Over here we have heading 1 through heading 6. I'll give you basically 2 guesses where the next piece of code is going to go. Switch back to your Google Fonts. I'm going to grab the second part over here. Copy that. And make sure you put it in the right place between the little curly brackets. And what we're doing here is we're redefining the default tags for headings. So wherever these heading tags are used in our code, it'll load the Paytone 1 font. Now you can further redefine these in additional ways. For example, by default the color is black for headings in our browser. We might be able to override that by saying, okay, color, let's choose a nice dark gray over here. It's almost black, but not quite. There, 26, and there you go. So now you'll notice that there's a little asterisk over here that's showing you that this file hasn't been saved yet. So make sure you save this file, and that way the changes, when you switch back to your starter page, will start showing. Now, in design view, you're not going to see much. These just switch to sans serif, but we don't see any more than that. If you want to see how those fonts look, you actually have to switch to live view. So click the little drop down over here, and live view will actually look a lot more accurate. And you can see right away all our headings now are using the right fonts, and our body text is using the right fonts. So this is we're off to a good start here. So good, we've gotten that out of the way. Now anytime you want to use these font families, you can just copy and paste this little code here in other areas. The next thing we want to do is maybe structure our document so that it's a bit more realistic. If we look at our mock-up, again, always using it as a reference, we'll notice that, you know, there's a container over here for your logo box. And if you're not sure, by clicking it, it will show you the class that's assigned to this. Oops. There we go. So if I click here, this is logo container. If I look in my styles.css, I'll find that logo container class is here, and it has no values at this point. However, it's already been created. Now the way the CSS file works is that it starts with the broad, you know, HTML body headings, and then it goes to, you know, the largest containers working its way down to the smallest containers. So there's a specific order to this, and I've indicated here with comments, you know, the different sections in the document. So this would be the header part, then, you know, the main document area and the sidebar. Now the sidebar, you'll notice there's a little glitch over here on line 71. You want to put in a semicolon there because it's missing. We don't want any glitches there because of a missing semicolon. And the next thing we want to start doing now is formatting these containers. So you can go straight into the code once you've identified what it is, for example, logo container, and add some width and height there. Or if you prefer a more visual method, you know, select your logo box, and the code is logo container. You have 2 options here. You can actually click logo container in your list of CSS in your CSS designer. If you don't see the CSS designer, you can trigger it through the window menu here. Turn that on. And if you don't see the double window split like I have here on my screen, it's possible it's because your panels are narrow, so you're getting like the long version. If you drag it out and you have the screen real estate to do this, it makes it a bit easier to work with. So if you drag it out far enough, it splits into two. Here are your sources, so make sure you select your styles.css document, which contains all the CSS. And you have a couple of options here. If you click on all or current, all will show all the styles in your style sheet. So you can jump around from at any point. If you click on current, what it does is it isolates only the immediate area that you're working in. So, and it auto selects, for example, the container that you want to work on. So if I click here, right, it'll tell me that this is in the hero box. I can now address it right away. It's also showing me other ones that are in the immediate vicinity, but it doesn't show me everything that I don't need. If I want to work on the navigation bar, for example, if I click here, it automatically selects the nav item, nav bar, primary nav. So depending on whether you choose all or current, depends on your workflow, you can use that technique. Current might be more helpful because it automatically selects the object and the class that is associated with. So let's start doing something pretty simple. Let's give our logo box over here some space, because right now it's just flat and ugly, whereas in the mock-up we see that there's a bit of height over here, and we need to assign a width value. So let's click there. Logo container is automatically selected here. So let's give it a width. I'm just going to eyeball it and say 300 pixels. And height, again, we're just roughing things out right now, so I'm just going to say 100 pixels to just give it a bit of height. There you go. So right away we have a nice container which eventually will hold our logo. We might have to play around with these values later, but we have something to work with. Next up, we could probably use a little bit of work here in the bottom area with the sidebar. So if we click here, if you click enough areas, social sharing, right? So I clicked one of the elements in the sidebar. If I click the sidebar container, that's like this whole box over here, we can now modify that a little bit as well. So we can assign something like a background color. Let's go background, give it a light gray. So right away we see the results. That might be a bit too dark. Let's go a bit lighter. There you go. And we also want to make sure that everything is floating properly and everything looks good, right? So right now it's set to a width of 33%. Let's make sure it's floating left. Yes, it is. So now it lines up nicely with the content over here on the right, on the left. And you can see how it creates this nice column. You might want to give it a bit of breathing room, for example. So go back to sidebar container and maybe give it a bit of padding on the left. Maybe 15 pixels. Oops. So when we did that, it disappeared. And if we scroll further down, we see that it's all the way over here. Well, what happened was by adding this extra padding, this extra space over here, we've now gone beyond what the space can hold over here on the right hand side, so we have to reduce the width of this column. So you can select this number, and using your arrow keys, go up and down using the arrow keys to get these different values incrementing. And again, you could just eyeball it so that it fits, and here we are. So that's 31.3 instead of 33.3. I might want to give it some padding at the top also, just so it's not flush against. Let's go 15px. There you go. And it pushes it down a little bit just so it can give it some space. Next up, we're going to work on the navigation bar, but I'm going to end this tutorial here right now. We have our Google fonts. We have some basic layout getting taken care of. Next up, we're going to tackle the navigation bar because that's probably one of the bigger challenges in this assignment. So tune in to part 3 to see how we get that done. It'll take us about 10 or 15 minutes, but there's a lot of moving parts here, so we need to make sure we don't miss anything. Thanks for tuning in. Check out number 3 up next.